This conference will now be recorded.
And let me see if I can share my screen. Okay, in moving to the second part of the course, we move to planning. So we're going to start off with planning. In the first part of the course, I would always give you the information you needed to make journal entries, prepare financial statements. As we move to the planning part of the course, you're gonna have to do some calculations of, especially the quantity that you're working with. Let's start off by looking at absorption costing and variable costing. Traditionally, and for external reporting, we utilize absorption costing, where we look at the full product costs, raw materials, labor, and overhead. We don't make any distinction between fixed and variable. And we have period costs, the selling and administrative. As we move through the course for the next 6 weeks, we will be utilizing variable costing. And so now costs will be classified between variable and fixed. Variable and fixed. The variable can be raw materials and labor and manufacturing overhead if it's variable. And it can also be some variable selling expenses. Then manufacturing overhead can be fixed and selling and administrative expense will be fixed. What we will probably do is make all the overhead fixed to eliminate, you know, uh, calculation issues, and all of the selling expense will be variable. A variable cost uh, changes with volume. The more the volume increases, the more that cost increases. Fixed costs going to remain the same regardless of changes in volume. So you remember when we were doing direct labor and direct materials, we always multiplied the quantity utilized by the unit cost. But you remember we would have just one cost for the selling, but the selling expenses were percentage of selling price, so they were variable. They were a percentage of sales. So the selling expenses were variable. The administrative expense would be a fixed amount. So you want to get those two things clear. Either costs vary with the quantity produced or they stay the same. If we look at these two income statements, and they are going to be the same in this example because there are no ending inventories or beginning inventories. But if we look at Nepal Company's absorption basis, that traditional one is sales less cost of goods sold, gross profit, less the selling and administrative expenses, net income. We show it this way on our external statements because we don't want people to know what our costs are in making something. But if we were doing a variable costing income statement, it would be sales less the variable product cost, the inventory cost, the variable manufacturing margin. It's a key term now, the variable margin. Sales less the variable product cost, less the variable selling and administrative expenses, the contribution margin. Once again, a key uh, concept that we're using. Then less the fixed expenses, fixed factory costs, and fixed selling and administrative expenses to get our net income. So it is this variable costing income statement that we'll be working with over the next 6 weeks. Here's another example where we did have inventories. Our selling price was 200. We produced 10,000 units, but we only sold 8,000. Uh, and we made it, fairly easy. We made the direct materials variable 600. The direct labor was variable 300. The variable manufacturing overhead was 100. The fixed manufacturing overhead was 400. The variable selling was 80. The fixed selling was 20. The variable administrative 20. The fixed administrative 80. So this is just a comprehensive example. To come up with our product cost, notice how it changes. In traditional costing, we would have materials, labor, all the overhead, variable and fixed. We'd have a total cost of 1,000,004. If we produce 10,000, the cost would be 120 on the absorption. But on the variable costing, we don't have the fixed overhead in there, and so the total cost is 1,000,000. And so when we produce that quantity of 10,000, then the unit cost is 100. And now when we prepare those income statements, sales is the same under both income statements, absorption and direct or variable costing. But notice our cost of goods sold is going to change. Total production cost is 1,000,004 on the absorption costing. And remember that cost is 140 for the ending inventory, so the cost of goods sold is 1,120. But on the variable costing, the cost was 1,000,000. Then we had 2,000 in the inventory at 100, and therefore the cost of goods sold was 800,000, and we get this gross margin uh, based on the sales less inventory costs or product costs, 800,000. Then we'll subtract out the variable selling and administrative expense and overhead, and we get a contribution margin of 600. Once again, a key term that we will get into later. Then, different here we have selling and administrative, total selling, or net income. But with the variable costing, we're subtracting all of the overhead. None of this overhead ends up in inventory costs. So it's all the product costs along with selling and administrative. So the total expenses is 500. The net income is 200. So we have a difference in these incomes now, and that's because we have 2,000 units in inventory. On the absorption costing, it has that $40 per unit cost for the overhead, the fixed portion. It's that cost is not in there in variable costing. It's all expense. And so that because we're expensing more overhead, the net income is 200 versus the 280. So look at this. But a key thing that you just need to be aware of is that the format of this statement is changing. It's sales less variable product costs, manufacturing margin less variable selling and administrative expenses, contribution margin, then less your fixed expenses. So this is what your income statements will be looking like as we go through. So just review that. I don't, you don't have a problem assigned on this. I just wanted you to be aware of it. So just review those examples. Now we move to cost, volume, profit relationships. Cost, volume, profit relationships. One of your key takeaways for this course. Uh, you know,
Professor, I think the screen that you're sharing is frozen. I'm still looking at the Nepal company thing.
Is it frozen for anybody else?
Yes.
Yes, it hasn't moved.
Yes.
It's interesting because when I look in here, it's got it. Well, let me see. Is it moving now?
Well, right now I'm looking at a graph that says operating loss and operating profit.
That's where we want to be. So does everyone see this graph? Operating loss, break even, and operating profit. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, our takeaways in this course, we reviewed financial accounting. We then looked at job order costing uh, and looked at the basis of a job order costing system, one of the manufacturing accounting system. Then our third takeaway is working with uh, our master budget and our project and looking at cost, volume, profit relationships. That is, we have quantities on this bottom axis, and we have dollars sales on this top axis. And at a certain point, a certain quantity is going to produce a break even where sales and costs are the same. There's a certain quantity that produces that. If we don't make that point, then we're in an operating loss situation. If we don't sell enough quantity, and we can only make a profit when we sell more than this break even quantity. So break even is a major concept as we move into the planning portion of the course in our project. How do we come up with the quantity of break even? And that's something that you will have to calculate. Let's move to this example. Everyone see the example. Did this move for everyone?
No.
Still hadn't moved yet?
No, we're still looking at the graph. Oh, never mind. No, there we go.
I guess it's delaying for some reason. I'm not sure why that's happening. But of course, I did ask you to have what? Hard copies. Let's look at our situation here. We have t-shirts being sold. The selling price is $15. The cost is 5. Okay. And we have various scenarios with our fixed costs. We have various scenarios with our fixed costs. Let's look at the first scenario where we don't have any fixed costs and your quantity sold is 1. So if we sold one item, we would receive $15. Our cost would be $5. And so selling price minus the, product cost gives us a contribution margin of 10. And if we had no fixed costs, we'd have $10 in net income. In the second item, we say, okay, suppose the fixed costs are 100,000 and we sell one item. Fixed costs are 100,000 and we sell one item. The selling price is going to be 15. The cost is going to be 5. That contribution margin is 10. But because your fixed costs are 100,000, then you would have a loss of 999,000. Excuse me, 99,000 and 990, I believe. Is that right? And so you sold one item because your fixed costs are $10. You only, uh, were able to cover $10 of the fixed costs. Let's change the example to 20,000. Suppose we sold 20,000. What's our selling price? And if we multiply 20,000 times 15, how much are we going to get? Is that going to be 300,000?
Is there any way you can like refresh your screen? It's kind of hard to like keep up right now. I don't see none of the calculations you're doing. I just see like blank, and I could hear you, but I can't really follow.
Yes, this. I'm not sure why it's doing this. I guess this. See, we're in there now. Okay, is it moving some down for you?
Yeah, it just popped up the problems up to the second one, but the third one is still empty.
Okay, I made the third one empty so we could go back to it. Do you see the first one and the second one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the third one. And I guess I'll just have to delay when I move to another screen. But we'll be on this for a little while. Let's assume that we sell 20,000. Then the selling price is going to be 15 times 20,000. And so that's going to be 300,000. Okay? Any questions? Now that cost is $5 each. It's a variable cost. So we must have to multiply 5 times the 20,000 and we get a cost of 100,000. Therefore, our contribution margin is 200,000. Our fixed cost in this case was zero, and so we would make $200,000. In our next scenario, the fixed costs are 100,000. So we sell 20,000. Our sales are going to be the same. Our costs are going to be the same. Our contribution margin, what we're making, is 200,000. But now you got to subtract out the fixed costs, and so our net income now is 100,000. Can everybody see those four scenarios? Are there any
Oh,
questions
so
on those four
No,
scenarios?
it's still just the second one.
It's still just the second one.
yeah, I
Yeah.
still see just the first two, and the only thing I see is the 20,000, 300,000,
And
and
the
zero.
200,000. Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Let me stop sharing. Okay, it does flash up a poor network connection and maybe on my end. Let me just see if I can share again. What do you see now?
It's a blank screen.
A blank screen?
Yeah, like there's nothing except for the go-to background.
Ah, it's showing on my screen, but not on others. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing again. That's always problematic. Unfortunately, on my screen, when I pull it up, it shows everything. Let me see if I can, let's see if we can try it again. Is there anything up there now? Let's wait a minute. Share. Is there anything up there now?
No.
No, sir.
That's interesting.
Oh, now it is.
Yeah, but can you try to type something to see if the delay is still there?
Okay, so do you see it now?
Yeah, the screen is up.
Okay, but the question is going to be about, let me just look at these. You remember the first two scenarios, correct?
Hmm.
Where we sold just one item. And let's just look at scenario 3. And in alternative 3, the quantity sold was 20,000. And so the selling price would be 20 times 15, 300,000. The cost would be 20,000 times 5, 100,000. And so the contribution margin is 200,000. We assume no fixed costs in this model, so the net income was 200,000. So
And
everyone see that?
the contribution margin, you got it from subtracting the 300 and the 100, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's a process that we'll always will utilize. Then in situation 4, I simply say, okay, suppose we had the 100,000 in fixed costs. Then the sales will be the same, 300. The cost will be 100,000. The contribution margin will be 200,000. And the fixed cost will be 100,000. So now our net income drops to 100,000. So I'm simply trying to show here what happens, what happens when you have those costs. Did the screen move for you just now?
No, but I'm
It doesn't
following
show the.
along.
I just moved it a little bit to show the table. Okay, let me put you all to work then. Go to the third alternative. Okay, and put down 100,000 for the fixed cost. Did you see that? If you don't, just put down 100,000 for the fixed cost. Okay. So I want everybody to put down 100,000 for the fixed cost in this fifth scenario. Any questions on that? So now I want you to make a calculation for me. I want you to come in this box and put the quantity sold so that the net income will be 0. That is, what quantity is going to produce a net income of 0? We see 20,000 produces the profit of 100,000, so we know that it has to be less than 20,000. But what number, when you put it in as the quantity sold, what number, when you put it in this top line for quantity sold, and you do the calculation, it will produce a net income of 0. Any questions? So begin the calculation. Come up with a quantity. Come up with a quantity that's going to produce uh, a net income of 0. So I'm going to give you about, uh, let's just say, 5 or 7 minutes to see if you can come up with a quantity that when you put it in this formula and you have sales, less cost of goods sold gives you contribution margin, less fixed costs is going to give you net income of 0. So see if you can calculate that. Everybody understand what I want you to do?
Would it be 40,000?
Okay, Aisha says 40,000, so she's now.
Wait, actually, no. Never mind. I take it back. Don't quote me. Don't quote me.
Okay, I want a number in here. I want a number in here, quantity, so that your net income is zero. And as Aisha comes up with, and 20,000 might produce more income than less, but you got to get to zero. That's a key calculation that you expected to know as you move forward to your upper level courses and marketing, uh, your capstone course, your entrepreneurship course, the project that you're working on. How many items do you have to sell so that your profit will be zero? How many items will you sell so that your profit will be zero? And I hope our situation will improve, or else we'd have to go meet on campus on Monday. But hopefully we'll be okay going forward. But anyway, you all have all the facts you need. You have all the facts you need. Give me a quantity that's going to produce a net income of zero. And I think it keeps popping up that I have a poor network connection today. So for some reason that's happening. So, but we'll work through it one way or the other on this poor network connection. But you're supposed to be telling me how many. Got to give me a number that's gone.
Is it 20,000?
Is 20? We had 20,000, and that produced income of 100. So if 20,000 produces income of 100, and I want this number to be zero, it should tell me that what the number sold's got to be less than 20,000.
So do you divide those two numbers to get 20?
There will be some dividing involved. But I'm trying to get you to see what kind of number, if you put it in here, would produce an income of zero. And you'll
Could it
be,
be 10,000?
how many?
10,000?
Okay, so let's put in 10,000. 10,000 times 15 is how much?
150?
150,000. Is my screen acting okay now?
Absolutely not.
Well, you just put 150 down, 150,000 down. Now, 10,000 times 5 is what?
50,000.
50,000. So our contribution margin is what?
100,000.
Our fixed expenses are 100,000. Net income is zero. So therefore, 10,000 is the break-even amount that if you put that number in, so everybody, you should have this information down. I'll go out again and come back in. Uh, did it do any better?
Yeah, it popped up now.
Okay. So Aisha, how'd you get this 10,000?
Honestly, I did 15,000 first. I just went down, and then that didn't work, and then I did 10,000. That's how I got it.
Okay. So what you'll be calculating on an examination in 2 weeks is that break-even amount. So we have an examination in 2 weeks' time, and we're going to have to be able to calculate the break-even amount. Okay? So, of course, there probably is an easier way to do it. I'm going to move my screen, and I hope it's moving for you all. Did it move?
No, it didn't.
No.
Ah, so let me stop sharing. Has it moved now?
I think it's still loading. Okay, yeah, there we go.
Okay, it's slow. Now, you see some formulas at 5, 6, and 7. You've got to memorize those 3 formulas and know how to work.
Do you have this worksheet posted by any chance?
I think it is posted.
What's it called?
Contribution margin, variable costing. It's called variable costing and um, break-even analysis. So you can go in there, go in Blackboard and should be able to pull it down.
I see the folder, but nothing was in it when I opened it.
There's nothing in it for everyone.
Yeah, I just pulled it up and it's blank.
I guess everything is okay. So let me see if I can go in Blackboard and put this in. But this is up now. These 3 formulas are up.
Yeah, we could see the formulas.
Okay. So for the second time, you got to memorize these 3 formulas and know how to work. For the third time, you got to memorize these 3 formulas and know how to work. Okay. Okay. Let me just see. So just continue to look at those formulas. And I'll talk about it. Well, let me talk about them a little bit, since we're on this page. With these formulas, and we're going to concentrate on this number 5, break even first. The first thing is unit selling price. And the unit selling price in the prior example was how much? What were we selling those items for?
$15.
$15.
And our variable cost was what?
$5?
And our fixed cost was what?
0?
Now it was
Or was it
100,000.
100,000? Okay.
So selling price was 15, variable cost was 5, and fixed cost was 100,000. So put those numbers down. We have this UCM, your unit contribution margin, and we're going to calculate that by subtracting from the selling price the variable cost. So I don't know if you will see this as I type it in. Probably not. But we just simply subtract selling price 15 minus variable cost 5, and that's going to equal 10. Okay, so let me, okay, so hopefully you see this calculation. Unit contribution margin, that's this calculation we're going to make. It's going to be 15 minus 5 equals 10. Any questions? Any questions on that calculation? Then we have this break-even formula, which says that the sales quantity to break even, the sales quantity to break even is fixed cost over unit contribution margin. So you should be able to do this. Put a fixed cost of 100,000 in a calculator on your phone, and divide that by 10. So we're working on the break-even formula. And if you were utilizing this formula to get the break-even sales, fixed costs divided by unit contribution margin. Unit contribution margin is selling price minus unit cost. So just look at that and think about it. Let me see if I can go into Blackboard again and put this back in. And I should have some copies of this in my office tomorrow for those of you who are on campus.
What time would you be on campus tomorrow?
I will get there about 15 minutes to a quarter to 11, and I have 11 o'clock class, and I'll be back in there between 12:30 and 1, and I'll be in there again until 2:30 in my office. So from about 1 to 2:30, I'll be in my office. And what would be good if you just pick them up for your team. See if it's in there now. So go to Blackboard and see if it's in there now.
Yeah, I pulled up.
So if you go there, we're on page 5. Well, it's page 6. So if you would, is my screen moving in and now, or is it still frozen?
I'm looking at the questions that are like when a company. Well, no, I'm looking at the graph.
Okay, so it did move. So what I want you to do is just spend 10 minutes reviewing, about 5 or 10 minutes reviewing operating loss, operating profit, look at that. Then look at the example. Uh, Yours may be blank. You know, attempt to fill it out. If you can download it and fill it out. Then this is back to this information in terms of a lot of time, what you're going to have to be able to do is to not only determine break even, but what's the quantity if you want to make $1 million, or if you're going to lose 100,000 in your first year, what quantity will be produced at? And so there's certain things we got to be familiar with. The selling price, the variable costs, and we said those were 15 and 5. The total fixed cost, that will always be given to you. And then you got to calculate this unit contribution margin all the time. Then there are these 3 formulas which you've got to memorize. There's one formula that tells you the quantity to break even. The next formula gives you uh, the formula of the quantity that you're going to need if you got a certain target profit. Typically, that target profit is going to be $1 million in our examples. Third, a target loss. There's a formula to get the target loss when that quantity, what that quantity is going to be, to get to a certain level of target loss. And then there's always this contribution margin income statement. Sales less variable costs, contribution margin. Less fixed costs, net income. Any questions? Okay, let's see if we can move. So I'm moving to, like, this is going to be page 7. So move to page 7 of the handout. Move to page 7 of the handout. And I will, what we have are some demonstration problems, and we're looking at option 1. We're looking at option 1 where computers are being sold, where computers are being sold. Our unit, does everyone see this? Can you see this option 1?
Yeah.
And this is on page 6. Your selling price for the computer is $2,500. Your variable cost is $1,500, and your total fixed cost is $150,000. The first thing we're going to do is calculate the contribution margin, okay? So calculate this contribution margin with me. Put in $2,500 for the selling price. put 1,500 in for the variable cost, subtract line 2 from line 1, and you're going to get a contribution margin of $1,000. Okay? So whether you can see it or not, you should be put that in. Put in 2,000 for the selling price. Put in the unit variable cost of 1,500 and come up with a contribution margin of 1,000. Did it move to those numbers on your all screen?
No, but I'm following along.
Okay. So just go through and put those numbers in. So, has this master budget quantitative solutions table come up?
It's still loading.
Okay. Has it gotten there yet?
No.
We're on page 6. So in the handout, go to page 6. Is it there yet? Yet.
Nope.
Oh, it's slow today.
There it go. It has the option one, option two.
Yep. And you are working on option 1. So it did get there. I just want you to
Okay.
do 2 columns for me on option 1. 2 columns on option 1 with the information we had. If we sold one item, what would the net income be? Then I want you to go to this break even and calculate the break even quantity.
Okay.
So you're just doing these 2 red columns. I want you to, if you sold just one, calculate the net loss. Then I want you to calculate a break even quantity.
Is the break even 150?
Well, you're supposed to do that left column for me, but you say it's one, is it 150?
Yeah.
Well,
Oh wait, no.
do the first column sale of one first. Has the screen updated yet?
Yes.
Okay. So you see on the left side, with the sale of one, selling price 2,500, the cost of the computer was 1,000. So we calculate that unit contribution margin at 1,500. The fixed costs were 150. So my net income was a loss of 148,500. Are there any questions? Now let's go to our break-even column. And to get this and here we just we put in a quantity of one. So what I want you to do is to use that formula. Everybody use the formula now and come up with the quantity that's going to cause us to break even. I put the amounts in. I put the fixed cost
100.
in, and I put the contribution margin in. Does everyone see that?
Yeah. Is it in
It's
red? The
there in red. Is that
150? Yeah. I got
right?
100.
So you got how much?
100?
All right. Well, utilize your 100 and see if that works. Utilize a 100 and see if that causes you to break even. So everybody put the 100 in. So the first thing you're going to do is multiply 100 times the selling price of 2,500. And that should give you 250,000. we now have to multiply the variable cost, and that should give you 100,000. So our dollar contribution margin will be 150,000. Our fixed cost is 150,000, and so our net income is zero. Has my screen updated for the middle column?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's not frozen no more.
Oh, good. Now we. So does everyone see that middle column? Can everybody do column one, and then can you do the middle column?
What is that computer? What's that? That
That's what you're
row?
selling. You're selling computers,
Oh, okay.
and you sold one computer in the first case, just to see what would happen if you sell one. So when you have your examination next week, you'll have a table looking just like this. And I always start off with one, but I let you practice on it because I get all kind of answers if you hadn't practiced on just selling one. Now we have to break even. Any questions? Any questions?
How did you get 100 for the quantity?
See here up here, that formula was fixed cost divided by unit contribution margin. Fixed cost, 150,000, divided by this unit contribution margin. That's the formula. That's the break-even formula that you memorize. The break-even formula equals fixed cost divided by unit contribution margin. The fixed costs, they stay the same. That's going to be the same in all alternatives, 150,000. So we just simply divided 150,000 by 1,500. Does everybody see that? So everybody here wants to be a millionaire, right? Right, Robert? You want to be a millionaire, right? So, Bethany, if you want to be a millionaire, how many of these computers you got to sell so you make $1 million?
I'm not gonna even hold you. I'm confused on the whole thing.
You confused on the whole thing.
Everything. You lost for a minute.
Utterly confused. This was the most confusing lesson ever.
Most confusing lesson ever.
I'm trying to like since your computer was freezing, I ain't know where you was getting the numbers from. I ain't know what you was doing, and I'm trying to figure out what you're doing, but it's not clicking for me. So that's why I'm trying to wait till you post this on your YouTube channel so I can go ahead and figure out what you was doing.
Okay, so you're gonna wait for me to post it on that YouTube channel.
Well, I'm not gonna wait. I'm still trying to figure it out because
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll get that up. Yeah, this has been a tough day because like I say, the screen was frozen and the item didn't get in Blackboard for you to make the copies ahead of time. So
Yes,
hopefully,
I was work. I was on the wrong copy the whole class. I had the home. I'm so confused as to what's going on.
Well, number one, this is the first day on it. Okay, this is the first day. And so on Wednesday, we'll be on it for the second day. But you're going to have your hard copy one way or the other. Either you make a copy or you come by the office to get it, or you send a team member to come by the office to get it to share with you. But it's going to be helpful if you have a hard copy.
Wait. So the hard copy we were supposed to print out was this one, not the homework?
Yeah, well, homework is fine too.
Hmm. Okay. Okay.
Well, hey, that's good to put out the homework too. So you started on the homework already?
No, I don't. I didn't even know what I was looking at when I got it. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Okay. So I'm just trying to get it in there early. You know, you can see sometimes there's issues with things getting in there as they should. But what we're due, this is in there. Either make a copy, come up with a way to come out of office now and get a copy tomorrow so you'll have it. Uh, and I'll try to get the next item that we work on, the hard copy, earlier. We're coming off a break today, so but I'll try to make sure you have a hard copy so we don't have this issue again. But we're using this hard copy, this material for the next three class periods today. Then we'll utilize it again on uh, Wednesday, then again on Monday, then again on the next Wednesday. So this is the first day on it. It's different because I used to give you all the numbers. Okay, you didn't have to calculate nothing. I always tell you the quantity that was sold. As we move to this part of the course, I don't give you those numbers. So you're going to have to now begin to think and plan. And what we did today, you got to do for your project. What we did today, you got to do for your project. Okay?
Oh, speaking of projects, some of my team members are kind of confused as to what the project is.
But that's a good question. What the project is. Let me
Yeah, because we
see.
had a 0 for a grade and we was wondering why.
Well, if you didn't send it in on time, but hold on for a second. Let me see if I can get a project. Okay. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yes.
So on the project, you got to make something. So last semester, the students made this birdhouse. They
Okay.
physically bought all of these pieces and made this birdhouse. And
So we have
then,
to.
yeah, you got to physically buy it and make something.
Okay.
And then that will help you understand a lot more. And then they also made an image of it on the 3D printer, which is in my office area. So you got to do both, physically make it and then make an image. Now, when you do this, I'm going to ask you if you were selling this, how many would you have to sell to break even? So if I ask you how many you had to sell to break even, you got to know your raw materials costs and your labor to make it, all your variable costs, come up with fixed costs, and come up with a number. You've got to come up with the number. So your first thing is to determine what you're going to make and make it. And you got to be making it pretty fast because when we finish this material, you got to make these calculations that we're working with today.
Okay. Okay. I understand.
So
So do
now
we have time to? Do we have time to resubmit that? Because we didn't have an understanding on what we were supposed to do, and we don't want zeros.
You want zeros?
No, we don't.
Okay, well, we'll give everybody a chance to resubmit. We'll give the teams a chance. 'Cause I don't want you to have zeros either.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I don't want to be upset like those Cougars were in that championship. Okay. Any other questions? So you all got to work hard on this starting tonight. Have something to me by Thursday. Just something simple and basic. Now, in my office are a range of things that students have made through the years. In fact, during the pandemic, the students made this for me. Okay, this is a coaster. So they nicely made a coaster for me. I could put my hot tea on it during the pandemic. But during the pandemic, they made uh, a product and completed this information on it. So since we out the pandemic and y'all free and fancy to do everything you want, I expect you to get this made. So we clear on it now. And so you can always come in my office complex, whether I'm there or not, and look at various items that have been made over the years. Okay? Anything else? Okay, so what I want you to do next time is my screen moving now? Did
Yeah.
it move? Oh, move it now. We can have class now, I guess. But first of all, review and realize you got to memorize 5, 6, and 7. You got to memorize these formulas. 5 tells you the formula break even. 6 tells you the formula if you got to make a certain amount of money, say $1 million. 7 tells you what the target loss is. And of course, we will go over all of this next time. We'll go over all of this next time. But your starting point is to memorize these formulas. Uh, so that should be, your memory should be good enough. Maybe put it on a memory card or something. If you started on Alzheimer's already, put it on a memory card. But you need these 3 formulas available and readily, so you'll be able to work things out. And that's over the next 6 weeks. Okay. Then here's this in-class problem. Finish one, well, go to 2 and do break even. So we had option 1 and we calculated break even. Go to option 2 and calculate break even with another set of facts. Selling price, variable cost, fixed cost. Calculate my break even quantity. So just go down to option 2, do sale of 1 and break even. And we will pick it up from there next time. Okay. So a little rocky start after the break, but we'll still survive that. So let's make sure we have hard copies one way or the other. If you got a team member on campus, they can get extra copies for other team members, then get it to them, meet. So you got this hard copy. So even, you know, if I was, even if the screen is working, you need your hard copy to make your notes and everything as we're going through.
Real
So
quick, do you have the variable cost and the contribution margin flipped for option one, or am I looking at it wrong?
okay, what did you say now for option 1?
The variable cost and the contribution margin, is it flipped?
With this 100,000 here?
Yeah, because when I'm looking at the little table at the top, the contribution margin is 1,000 and the variable cost is 1,500.
Okay, let me just. Okay, selling price is 2,500, right? Did I flip those from the information?
The selling price is right. It's just the
Okay, we were using 1,500, correct?
uh
Okay, so well, that's a good thing. Go ahead and rework it.
okay.
So let's go and rework, so we can rework this first one, and the variable cost was 1,500. So the contribution margin now is 1,000. So now go and rework it with that information in. So we just gone, what Aisha pointed out uh, was that in terms of the numbers that I pulled down the wrong ones, so I reversed them. So we got them reversed back as they are, in the options, 2,500 to 1,500 and 150,000. Then do break even on option two. Go ahead and finish the whole thing if you can, reading through it. But if not, this video will be up. There are other videos that I would have on this, you know, that's in the YouTube channel. So go through and review that, and let's see if we can get up to speed on it. So sometimes calculating break even, because it is a whole different process and thought process, and you're not given numbers, you're thinking, it can cause problems. And that's just nationwide. A lot of times students, there are issues with that. But you have the setup for it. You have the handout. I will also put in the Blackboard an Excel sheet that has this information on it also. So I will put that in there, and then we'll work with it, and certainly, we'll get more familiar with it on Wednesday. Then on Monday we should have it down pat. We'll go over our homework. That's a team homework. There are 4 problems, so those will be allocated to team members. Then, then you send it in as a team submission showing who worked on what. So the team leader will send those in. But we'll talk about that more next time. So you all have a pleasant evening with this jolt back from spring break and resting. But we're in the home stretch now. And so we look forward to, working through. So this is a little different. It's a little change in pace, but hopefully by next time we'll be picking up on where we need to be.